Hi and welcome to this chess video. We are going to have a look at another game from the Tata Steel Chess Masters round 1, and this is a game between Jorden van Foreest and Vishy Anand. So as you can see here, we have the starting rank of the players. Former world champion Vishy Anand is the number 6 seed out of 14 players in this tournament, and Jorden van Foreest, he is the bottom seed. He is of course a local player, a Dutch player, so he gets to play in the A group. So a big test for him, and well, he's thrust into the deep end of the pool in the first round, and he's playing against Vishy Anand. So let's see how he does against the Tiger from Madras. E4, the king's pawn, and c6. So Vishy goes for the Caro-Kann, and it looks like we're seeing a lot of different openings in this first round. We had perk defense from Mamedyarov, we had an early b5 from Magnus, and now the Caro-Kann. Of course it's played from time to time, but most of these top level tournaments we're seeing e4, e5. But okay, we have the exchange variation, bishop d3, knight to f6, and c3. The exchange variation, it's very playable, of course, and if I'm not mistaken, even Bobby Fischer used to play like this with white. And now Vishy goes for a rare move here, queen to c7. The most common move by far is knight to c6, but queen to c7 was played, and this is directed against bishop to f4, which is the most natural developing square for the bishop. Van Foreest goes for h3 here, which is playing against this bishop, taking away this square, and this bishop already takes away this square. And now g6 by Vishy, and this actually is a novelty on move 6 according to my database. So in this round we're having very early novelties, especially for such a high level event. So Van Foreest goes on with development. He plays knight to f3, and Vishy plays bishop to f5. Now white didn't take, and black actually doesn't mind white taking. In the game knight e5 was played, but if you take, even though black has double pawns, the control over the e4 square is quite important and useful. I haven't found the link, but I recently saw Hikaru Nakamura playing such a structure with the black pieces on one of his live streams, and I think it's a very solid structure of black. So after bishop f5 we have knight to e5, knight c6, and now bishop f4. Pretty natural development by white. He's lining up against the queen, which now has to move again. And the attack on the b2 pawn, white deals with quite nicely. He takes on f5, and after g takes on f5, he protects the pawn with knight d3. Now some of you might ask, can I just take on b2 here, a Zwischenzug? And the answer to that is that no, actually you can't, because if you take on b2, white can take on c6. And okay, now if you take here, I can move the knight, but the gist of it is that if you take something like queen a4 and the attack on c6 and the rook is devastating, we're still covering this, and some lines we can castle. The tactics work out for white. So Vishy took on f5, knight d3, now covering the b2 pawn, e6, and white goes on with development, knight d2. And now rook g8 by black, using the half open file here. But white just castles into it, castles. Vishy has to go the other way. I mean, we already moved the rook and there's no cover on the king side, so queenside castles. But now white gets on with it, a4. And at first glance, it looks like white has the more dangerous attack. I mean, black is really only attacking with one piece, so there are no threats. But it looks like white is more ready to like push the pawns, maybe thrust the knight in here. The bishop is decent, although it can't be traded off on d6. And you know, once we start pushing these pawns, could be a problem for black. But Vishy plays knight to e4, and what this move does is, well, first of all, you don't really want to take, because f takes e4 really improves black's structure, gives him some space. But the problem with the knight here on e4 is that it's hitting the c3 pawn, so in many cases it's tough to actually play b4, which you want to do in many lines, because the pawn on c3 will simply hang. We do have some tactics though, with the queen hitting the knight and then maybe playing b5. So maybe it's not all that clear, but in many lines attacking c3 can be a nuisance for white, and indeed he did play rook c1 to protect the pawn. Now Vishy played bishop d6, and he said in the post-game interview that he was quite happy after this, because, well, he trades off this nicely posted bishop of white, and he felt like his pieces got some fluidity. You know, he can sort of go from wing to wing. It doesn't really have any big problems. So still a game, b4 by white, and again he looks more threatening. But Vishy is quite calm here. He plays king to b8. After queen e2, he plays queen to c7. Note that instead of queen e2, if you, okay, it's natural that you want to push the pawns once you start rolling, but if you go b5, black will play knight to a5, and this completely blocks the pawn on a4 and on b5, and it gives black very good control over the c4 square, and he can even think about starting to attack on the c file and think about attacking the c3 pawn. The other push, a5, we can maybe even just play queen b5, and we have a great blockade, again controlling the c4 square, and we can start thinking about actions on the c file, and this queen is not so easy to dislodge. So even though this looks dangerous, white isn't really threatening that much. Queen e2, queen goes back, queen to e3, and here after knight e7 we have f3 by white. Okay, he wants to take control of the e4 square, but here after knight g6 it seems like white walked into a trick here. He needs the knight on d3 to control the f4 square, but he did play knight to e5, and this allows Vishy to completely take over, and this is where the game swings from being probably a game, maybe slightly better for black, to just a steamroller effort for black here. f4, the queen has to move, and now the other knight enters the game, knight to f5, and this square here is just, it's too juicy, because you will also have action on the g file, as you'll see pretty soon. White took on g6, rook takes, rook f2 covering g2, but the attack is incoming after c4, knight to e3, and there are just too many pieces bearing down on g2. Van Foreest took on d5, but now some tactics by Vishy. He can play queen d8 and he's completely winning, but he played knight takes g2, a nice move. Now you don't have time to take the queen, because I take your queen with check from this rook, and then I can take here. And what's worse is that I can actually give a check and protect my knight before I take the rook here. So in the game, Van Foreest tried queen e5, but after the trade and knight e1, he resigned. He doesn't really have a good move here. Wherever the king goes, we're going to play knight d3, hitting both rooks, and that's all she wrote. After we take the rook, we can even take the pawn here, and nothing for white to play for, especially against the former and the multiple world champions. So Van Foreest resigned here in his debut, but it will be interesting to see what happens in the next few rounds. Can he recover? What can he do? A big test for him as the bottom seed, and only time will tell. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. If you haven't, hit the subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate the like as well. And here's another video if you want to see more chess, especially from the Tata Steel Chess Tournament. I'll see you in another video. Bye bye. Okay, I mean, I have to shut on this video, but I want to keep a subscription link and maybe the other video running, so maybe you want to click it, maybe not. Okay, but okay.